I uninvited the one person who refused to respect me. I used to believe love meant staying quiet. When I met my partner, everything felt effortless. He was gentle, attentive, and unapologetically proud to be with me. His parents welcomed me easily. Family dinners were warm. Holidays felt safe. I thought I had been lucky in every possible way. There was only one exception. His sister never raised her voice. She didn't need to. Her comments were always wrapped in smiles, suggestions disguised as concern, jokes framed as honesty. She commented on my appearance, my clothes, my body. Never in front of him, always when no one else was listening. I told myself it was easier not to say anything. I didn't want to put him in the middle. I didn't want to be the reason for tension. So I absorbed it and smiled back. Until the dress. The fitting room was supposed to be a happy moment. My mother cried. The consultant clapped. I felt beautiful for the first time in weeks. And then his sister spoke. She didn't insult the dress. She insulted me. She listed my flaws like facts. She said I should be realistic. She said not everyone gets a dream version of themselves. When someone asked her to stop, she doubled down. I walked out before she finished. That night, everything spilled out. Years of disrespect. The things I had swallowed. The reason I flinched every time his family gathered. My partner didn't interrupt. He just listened. And when I finished, he was furious. Not at me, but at himself for not seeing it sooner. The next morning, he made a decision. He told his sister she was no longer welcome at the wedding. Not out of anger, out of principle. He said our wedding wasn't a family obligation, it was a celebration, and anyone who couldn't respect both people standing at the altar didn't belong in the room. I didn't ask him to do it, but I didn't stop him either. The fallout came quickly. Apologies that weren't apologies. Calls asking me to be the bigger person, accusing that I was causing division, ruining relationships before I had even joined it. I listened. Then I said no. Uninviting one person didn't destroy their family. Years of disrespect did. For the first time, I wasn't quiet. I didn't soften my words. I didn't carry blame that wasn't mine. I chose a wedding that felt safe over a tradition that demanded I be uncomfortable for the sake of peace. I didn't uninvite her to be cruel. I uninvited her because love deserves witnesses, not critics. And for once, I didn't apologize for it. The next story is about someone who was never invited to be respected in the first place.
I uninvited everyone who tried to control my wedding. I thought the hardest part of getting married would be planning around a growing family. I was wrong. My fiancé and I weren't hiding the fact that we were expecting. We weren't ashamed. The wedding wasn't a fix or a cover. It was a celebration we chose on our terms before our lives changed forever. At least, that's what we believed. The first warning signs came quietly. Comments about modesty, suggestions framed as concern, questions that weren't really questions at all. My family had strong beliefs, and I grew up learning that peace meant compliance. That illusion shattered the moment my fiancée shared photos of her wedding dress. It wasn't scandalous. It wasn't inappropriate. It simply didn't hide her pregnancy. That was the problem. My mother said it would make people uncomfortable. My aunt agreed. They insisted she replace it with something more suitable. When my fiancé cried, they called it sensitivity. When I pushed back, they called it disrespect. I told my mother to stop. She didn't. So I uninvited her. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't threaten. I simply said that anyone who treated my partner's body like a mistake didn't belong at our wedding. My aunt followed shortly after, by choice, not accident. She defended the pressure, the shame, the idea that appearances mattered more than dignity. Then my sister joined in. By then, the pattern was obvious. I told her the same thing. The reaction was immediate. Phones rang, messages flooded in. I was accused of tearing the family apart, embarrassing them, choosing my fiancé over the people who raised me. They wanted apologies. They wanted compliance. They wanted my fiancé to shrink herself so they could feel comfortable celebrating us. I refused. A wedding is not a negotiation. It is not a performance for relatives who confuse control with love. It is a promise between two people who deserve to feel safe standing together. I didn't uninvite them out of spite. I uninvited them because my child will never grow up believing they are something to hide. And if that makes me the villain in someone else's story, I can live with that. Because for the first time, I chose my family, the one I'm building. I thought uninviting her would be the end. It wasn't. The next story shows what happened when boundaries came next.
I uninvited my parents when they refused to respect my wedding. I thought planning a wedding in my 40s would mean fewer arguments. I was wrong. Every decision my partner and I made somehow became a debate. Not because anything was unreasonable, but because my family believed their preferences mattered more than ours. What cake we chose, what colors we liked, who stood where, nothing was ever just accepted. I kept telling myself it was harmless, that this was just how they showed involvement, that it was easier to nod and move on than to turn every conversation into a fight. Until it wasn't. We decided early on that our wedding would be alcohol-free, not out of judgment or necessity, simply because we wanted something calm and intimate, a space where conversations didn't get loud and moments didn't blur. My parents hated that idea. They framed it as concern for the guests, as tradition, as inconvenience. Every explanation I gave was met with another reason why I was wrong. When I told them they were free to leave early if it wasn't their scene, they laughed it off. Then my father said he'd just drink beforehand. Something in me snapped. It wasn't about alcohol anymore. It was about control, about being reminded yet again that my boundaries were treated like suggestions. I told them they weren't coming. I didn't yell, I didn't insult them, I just said that if they couldn't respect the kind of day we wanted, they didn't need to be there at all. My partner didn't hesitate. He stood up, took my hand, and walked out with me. Later, the guilt crept in. I'm their oldest child. This was supposed to be a milestone, a moment we all shared. But every time I considered compromising, I remembered how small I felt in those conversations, how quickly my happiness became negotiable. A wedding isn't about appeasing the loudest voices in the room. It's about choosing each other, publicly and without apology. I didn't uninvite my parents because I don't love them. I uninvited them because this time their approval wasn't required.